A while back, a book about the photon belt was published in Japan written by Nobuaki Watanabe, which became a hot topic at that time. According to the book, on December 23, 2012, the Earth would enter the photon belt and a major catastrophe would occur. However, nothing actually happened, and the book was dismissed as an urban legend, with people saying, "Oh, it was just a preposterous book after all." But here, let's briefly recap what we know about the photon belt. Today, everyone knows that the Earth revolves around the Sun. The cycle is exactly 1 year, while it is fine-tuned once every 4 years in the form of a leap year. It is called the fractal structure because the vast macro world of the universe and the micro world at the atomic level are in the same structure. In other words, just as electrons revolve around an atomic nucleus, the Moon revolves around the Earth, and the Earth and other planets revolve around the Sun. In the same way, our entire solar system revolves around the central sun called Alcyone in the Pleiades star cluster. The cycle is said to be 26,000 or 24,000 years. There is also a donut-shaped golden ring that runs perpendicular to the orbit of our solar system around the central sun. This is called the photon belt. As our solar system orbits Alcyone, it passes through the photon belt twice. It takes about 11,000 years for our solar system to re-enter the photon belt after leaving it on the other side, and 1,000 years to pass through it. So, a half-circle of the orbit is 12,000 years. There is another theory that it takes 2,000 years to pass through the photon belt, making a half-circle 13,000 years and 26,000 years for one revolution. This discrepancy in theory will be explained later in this video. By the way, while the solar system is revolving around Alcyone, the Earth is also revolving around the Sun, so when it enters the photon belt, it first goes in and out at the initial stage. December 2012 was supposed to be the time when the Earth was completely immersed in the photon belt and not exiting. On the other hand, there is another major cosmic event called ascension is happening at the same time that the Earth shifts to the fifth dimension. It is an extremely rare situation in the history of the universe to have these two events simultaneously. For this reason, many evolved beings have been watching over us, and many emissaries of light have been reincarnated on Earth at this time. However, the power of darkness was too strong, so the time of the ascension was significantly delayed. There is actually no such thing as a dark power, as it is merely the self-centered ego within us that has grown and reached the collective consciousness. Since we value material possessions and power to control this material-centered world, the darkness has grown considerably. In the meantime, a team of researchers from a completely different source has explained the mechanism how catastrophic natural disasters have been repeated once every 12,000 years on Earth along with massive tectonic shifts. This was derived from an analysis of past cycles of volcanic activities and ice ages from samples of strata and ice cores. The energy unknown to us penetrates and heats the core of the Earth, and magma becomes more active, resulting in prominent global warming and volcanic activity, which in turn causes not only earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, and floods, but also large-scale tectonic deformations. Again, the cycle of these catastrophic natural disasters is elucidated to be 12,000 years. As you may have already noticed, this cycle roughly coincides with the cycle in which our solar system enters the photon belt. And interestingly, there is data showing that the 24,000-year cycle is more devastating than the 12,000-year cycle. This indicates that the unknown energy that affects the cores of the planets, including the Earth, is stronger in one side of the photon belt than in the other side, while our solar system orbits around Alcyone. So, while nothing seems to have happened in December 2012, our solar system is already immersed in the 24,000-year photon belt, and magma will become more and more active from now on. This is why climatic anomalies such as massive earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, floods, hurricanes, and droughts are occurring frequently all over the world now, while the scale of these events is rapidly intensifying. Furthermore, the influence from the photon belt is expected to strengthen from the end of this year, 2024. These series of events are happening as part of the selection of humanity, of those who are not able to keep up with the fifth-dimensional consciousness. Yet, at this stage, it is still uncertain whether the selection of humanity has been decided, as even beings in the higher realms are not able to tell. However, if humanity's consciousness does not part from the materialistic, money-centered, three-dimensional thinking of the outside world, it would not be surprising if the selection was decided. On the other hand, those who have already reached a fifth-dimensional or even higher level of consciousness need not worry at all. When the new earth awakens, whether you have a physical body or not, you will already be able to live in a transcendent consciousness, and deal with any situation without three-dimensional concerns. In fact, from the universal perspective, the Earth is still in a primitive level of consciousness, figuratively speaking, at the kindergarten level. Many evolved cosmic and spiritual beings have been watching over the Earth, which is about to enter elementary school through the ascension process. That's why UFOs have been sighted so frequently recently. And the Earth is finally about to join the one unified space civilization. However, if we continue with the current money and power-oriented consumer economy, only the ruling class, those with vested interests, and the wealthy will be favored, while the majority of people will be forced to live under their control and exploitation. Even if advanced space technologies are introduced to us in such situations, it won't do any good, because there will be those who will try to sell them and monopolize the profits, or apply them to the development of weapons for war. Furthermore, even if free energy generators were created, in this consumer society, all the power-generating industries, including thermal, hydro, nuclear, or so-called green energy would go out of business, as well as all their subsidiaries, creating massive unemployment and great chaos. That is why building a new society is proposed, where human life precedes over money and where everyone is guaranteed a minimum level of prosperity as a human being. The international project is called Creative Society. However, the project has not yet reached the stage of breaking away from a money-driven system centered on those in power, such as politicians. On the other hand, the influence from the photon belt is becoming stronger, and unstoppable climate change and imminent natural disasters will even be more intensifying and frequent. The world has no choice but to unite and deal with it. It has already been set that the Earth will ascend to the fifth dimension. So, whether we will be selected out or we will build a new Earth filled with harmony and love depends on the awareness and awakening of each individual. Finally, this is incidental but a bit technical, so if you are not interested, please skip it. Some people who are knowledgeable in this field have questioned that the distance from the solar system to Alcyone is 440 light-years, and if we calculate the circumference using that as the radius, in order for the solar system to complete one revolution in 26,000 years, the solar system would have to move 0.1 light-years per year, in other words, at 1/10 the speed of light, which seems unrealistic. Since I am not an astronomer, I asked an AI about this. The answer was that it makes sense whether the cycle is 24,000 years or 26,000 years. Specifically, this is because, according to Kepler's third law, the square of the orbital period is proportional to the cube of the orbital distance. This proportional constant may be the reason for the slight discrepancy in the length of the period. There is still a lot we don't know about the universe.